you so much for joining us for On the Brink of Death. We're really, really excited for the program that's ahead today. This, some of you may know that this is a part of our broader program called Remembering Who We Are, which we started at the beginning of the pandemic to offer the best service that we could to our community of remembering that we are the soul and not the mind, the body, the ego, but really being in touch with our deepest self and living in that light. So we have a special series here we've had one session last week, and we have now our second session of On the Brink of Death today. There will be 5 in total. So we run until May 5th. And we're looking at life-threatening situations that Sacinandana Swami, our special guest, has gone through, where he has been in touch with the life of the soul in a way that is very provocative for all of us. And in whatever challenges we go through, this is really the vision of the program, and whatever challenges we may be facing, if it's possible to be our fullest self, the soul, really even in the most extreme circumstance, then how much hope is there for all of us? And I like to say we need that hope. I definitely need it myself. And it's also a real gift to be able to offer the presence of Sacinandana Swami to each of you. He is my own guru and has taught me everything. So I'm very, very grateful to be able to share with you what I consider the greatest gift. And just a few points on the culture, and I'll come back to another word on Sacinandana Swami. We would ask that you kindly give your full-hearted participation. That means that your undivided attention. Please do not be multitasking if at all possible. We would greatly appreciate it. Your presence affects everybody else, and it will definitely affect your own experience of the program, there's no doubt, but also as a service to others. And so listening and respect, being really mindful of being respectful to one another in this sacred space, creating a sacred space together, and a determination to really take what we learn into our lives. We are going to get some very, very special insights today, I have no doubt. And it's up to us to have an orientation of determination that I don't want to just hear this, and I certainly don't want it to go in one ear and out the other. I want to live more as my real self. I want to live like the soul. So we ask that determination of you. And now we have Sacinandana Swami, who is practicing bhakti yoga for 50 years, has been a monk for that long, and is an incredible honored speaker around the world and a writer. And we are so, so thrilled to have him, and so thrilled to have you with us. So with that, I will turn it over to Sacinandana Swami. And the format is that he will be telling a story about an experience on the brink of death. And there will be opportunity to ask questions, definitely after the program. This will run until 1 p.m. Eastern time. It will be an hour long. And then for a half an hour, we have the privilege of having him afterwards for questions. And if there's any time before then, we will also be able to ask questions. So thank you. And Sacinandana Swami, the floor is yours.
Thank you all very much for again joining us for this series of thought-provoking and hopefully inspiring sessions. When we conceived this series with 5 episodes, we wanted to find out something that would be impactful, and we decided that nothing speaks louder to us human beings than the experience of someone who is willing to share what they went through and then what they felt and maybe also what they learned. I'm usually accustomed to give more philosophical presentations, which tend to be a little abstract. But here, well, I also give workshops which are totally experience-oriented. But in public lectures like this, this format is for me also an unusual format and a challenging format, because it requires of me to go totally back into the experience, to bring out the visceral quality of it, and to try to touch your minds, your intelligence, but especially your heart, so that it is possible for you to come out of these series in an, or let us say, highly vitalized form. Today I would like to share an experience which I have titled Disillusionment in Serbia. Most of us do learn when we feel that something that we thought would be reliable breaks down. Health, for instance, relationships. When things break down that belong to our usual world or the way we think our world should be, then we are unsettled, we are moved out of the ordinary space, and we are forced to ask questions. What is really true? There is an old text which says, "It is because of the torment of the threefold sufferings from one's own body and mind, from others and from the environment, that the desire to know the means to counteract suffering arises." So when we come into a situation that is really challenging, then we will ask ourselves, how can I come to a better situation? How can I change my life even that is better? For most of us, the spiritual journey starts with suffering or miseries or disillusionment. What I'm going to relate to you made such a shift in my life that I really have not been the same afterwards. I had started to come to Serbia in the year 1983, and from there I began to travel all over the Balkan countries, Croatia, Bosnia, Macedonia, and so on. And I always felt very attractive to the atmosphere which was at that time there. I liked the hospitality of the people, the openness, the warmth, the feeling of unity which was there. In the evening, for instance, I would walk down the streets, and from every apartment in the apartment blocks, I heard singing. People were together. They were not on their own, suffered the phenomena of suffering the phenomena of crowded loneliness. No, they were all packed together, somewhere celebrating the day. And people had a heart for everyone. In fact, I was once told that the from young age, the pupils were taught the ideals of brotherhood. When they came into the school, they were initiated in community life. They were singing a song as they were standing there with their navy blue heads with a red star on it, a very nice and white shirt and blue pants. And they repeated, "Today I become a pioneer. I will give my word of honor. I will respect my seniors and my parents. I will be a loyal and honest comrade and friend. I shall love our homeland, the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. And I shall spread brotherhood and unity and the principles for which Comrade Tito fought. And I shall value all the people of the world who respect freedom and peace." That was the value system that was inculcated even from young age on. When I came there, being a warm-hearted monk, I was received by the people of the Balkans. The TV shows invited me. I taught meditation to heads of states. When I gave programs, I would invite figures of the public who would present with me. Sometimes in our musical presentations there would be the stars of the country singing along with us, playing instruments. And a program usually and typically ended by everyone who was fitting on the stage, coming on the stage and dancing. We cannot imagine these things happening, but they happened in 1983. Then war happened. And a rift went through the heart of the people. Neighbors told on neighbors. They were divided, families were divided, people were divided, and the dormant, aggressive tendencies which were sleeping but which were very much there came forth. If you ask the people of the Balkans what they saw in the war, it is inconceivable. They made concentration camps in Bosnia, and Bosnians put Bosnians into the concentration camps. I asked my father, "Can you explain what goes on when there is war? You, after all, fought for Hitler and the Nazis with the rest of Europe." And my father's voice choked, and I still remember what he told me. He said, "The borderline between a human and an animal is very thin, and it runs right through the human heart." He said to me, "I saw cannibalism amongst the German army. I saw things which were perpetuated towards the Jews, which I lose my mind if I would try to remember them. And I'm asking myself, how was it possible that we turned into animals, well-educated Germans?" And he said, there is a very, very thin borderline, and it runs right through each human being's heart, and people are willing to cross it in extreme situations. So when I saw this in the countries which I loved, where I was received in such an honorable fashion, I asked myself, what can I do? Is there anything which can be done? When I saw families turning against families, people against their own people, what can I do? And I consulted my friends in the media, and they told me, well, you're a monk, you can bring spiritual principles to the people, you can teach them. Why don't you make a good tour? Let us call it a song for peace, and we will advertise it in the media. So I did a few of these tours, and I will tell you about what happened in the last tour which I did, in the last program. The program which we conceived started as a culture program where we had Indian dance, you know, these temple dances. Then I gave a philosophical talk, and at the end we took loud instruments, I will say, synthesizers, drums and guitars, and did a program that allowed everyone to join in and to come and dance. My dear listeners, we had audiences with 10,000 people per evening and above. And it was creating an alternative to the tensed atmosphere. People came together, they saw a cultural presentation, they heard philosophy of spiritual unity. We are all belonging to the human race, we are all spiritual souls, part and parcel of divinity, and so on and so forth. And at the end, there was dancing. There were people would shout at me, Priyatelja. Priyatelja means friend, oh friend. I was the smiling friend of so many people. And at least these little islands of peace which were created during the programs gave hope back to people. And it became quite a thing to go there. We had all generations there, young people up to old people. But then the Serbian nationalists, an extreme section amongst them, could not tolerate it any longer. Now, I was scheduled to go back to the capital town, Belgrade, and from there travel to another town for the next day. But I received a phone call with a warning, don't come to Belgrade. There is aggression coming up against this extreme militant section of the nationalists who were campaigning for the war. Huh? Don't come here. So I went into a little town, a little bit in hiding that evening, and just about midnight I received a phone. Be very, very careful. The militant group was here, and they were asking, where is that German? Then, when no one of us wanted to talk, they broke the arm of one lady under torture, demanding to know where is that German. But my hiding place was kept secret. She did not know, and she also would not tell. I was really thinking, should we continue the tour or stop here? Again, I turned to my friends in the media. I described everything, and they said, well, just you need police protection. And I know one very influential person in the media. He arranged it. So now I come to the last program in that tour. By the way, after that Belgrade incident, we dropped one program, but the last program we wanted to give. It was the highlight of the tour. Many people who had been in other towns observing the program or participating in the program had already inquired if it was on, and we decided that with police protection it is possible. I still remember when we were entering through the backstage entrance into this huge hall, the police stopped us and said, wait, we are just, we received a threat that there would be a bomb this evening. We have our experts going through the building and trying to find if there is anything. So the program will happen later. So we told the people, there was an ocean of people before the hall, just wait. We are taking care of your security. And finally the police had done their clearing of the area with their experts, and we went in and the people went in. The program was so good. People were thirsty. They were taking up the spiritual inspirations which came like thirsty people in the desert when they are given life-saving water. My dear people who listen to this, people were like sponges in this tensed atmosphere where there was a war going on which was not their own war, but which was the war of the political powers, where they were confused, where they had seen the worst thing at that time. This form of documentaries came up. It's reality TV. You know, there were real shot of people running in Sarajevo over the streets and being shot by Serbian snipers. You know, that you could see that on the TV, what it was. I don't know if they still have this kind of documentation. There was tension and no one understood why do we, what is going on. Of course there was a political explanation which you can look up in Wikipedia, but people felt like unity and brotherhood and camaraderie and honoring freedom and peace, like anything. That they had learned this in the school. They had sung songs about it. So they came into our program wanting to relieve their souls by observing a song for peace, the program which we were presenting to the people. Now the program went very well. The Indian dance, very well received. People started to mimic in the audience the gestures and so on. The lecture, yes, went very well. And then the last part, where we invited everyone to rise, to sway left and right to the sounds of the music, and then we were encouraging them to chant. Towards the end, I was there on the stage. One of my qualities is I know how to dance. I was dancing very jubilantly because it was the last program, and there was such a relief. All of a sudden, I saw smoke in the hall. First I thought it was our own smoke machine, which for aesthetic reasons were used by us, so that people would have the idea of a transcendent reality. But then I saw that rows upon rows of people went down to the floor. It looked as if someone had come with a sickle and mowed down weed. And then the screams of panic, and all this happened in milliseconds. I looked and I saw one person just biting into something that, and I understood, oh no, he's throwing a tear gas bomb or some type of bomb, biting the thing out, the thing which is necessary to blow this thing up, and throwing it to where all his own people were, throwing it with an evil, grimacing expression in his face. I can never forget this face. It haunts me. A person biting into a grenade and throwing it into his own people. My dear people, this is intense. And then I got it. I was breathing and I got the smoke into the lungs. I remember it was like a shock when it went into my lungs. I lost my consciousness. I felt dizzy, and I tumbled towards the edge of the stage, which was quite high, and started to fall. I think you all know what it feels when you are jumping from 10 meters. But if you do it for sports, like jumping into the bathing, what is it called, swimming pool, that's one thing. If you fall from there with anxiety in your hearts, oh, free fall is really very, very, very bad. So I knew I just fell down from the stage, and then I don't remember anything any longer. I passed out, and when I woke up, I was lying on the lawn. Someone was over me doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and everywhere people were running, trying to flee from outside of the hall. There was shouts of panic. There was smoke coming out of the hall, tear gas bombs, but many, many, many bombs. People diving back into the hall to try to catch near and dear ones and bring them out and show them out or carry them out. It was panic. Police came, ambulance came, and I was there breathing and trying to find back my normal functions. My dear people, I do not know if I could have done full justice to this. I have thought since that time about what had happened, and the way I can explain it is by going into a subject that has engaged people since a long time. In around 1880, Louis Stevenson wrote his famous novel Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is based on what my father told me also, that there is a borderline running through the heart, and in that same heart is a good portion and a bad portion. And it serves as well to read a little bit the considerations of Dr. Jekyll. I mean, Louis Stevenson lets Dr. Jekyll speak. Dr. Jekyll is a doctor. He is full of compassion. He wants to help humanity. And he finds out, in his own words, the curse which is lying on humanity is that the human being really is not one, but he's two. And this incongruent parts are connected with each other in one consciousness. These parts are like twins which hate each other to the death. So Dr. Jekyll, who sees that the person is divided, that a human being is divided, he has a good part and a bad part in it, thinks like this: what would happen if I would take these two twins and separate them? I would take one out away from the other so that they don't need to fight all the time any longer. And he develops a medical drug and then is able to separate that evil and shameless creature in himself, whose thoughts only revolve around his own interest. He separates it, and it's with a animalistic scream that other part in him, the Mr. Hyde, runs out of his personality and goes into London, where he visits the houses where the women live who take payment for a night, and just is doing all the wild things which Dr. Jekyll may have had at times in his own fantasy. No, now it's separated. Now this other part of him, Mr. Hyde, is gone and is no longer with him. And that struggle in himself is over. He doesn't need to fight any longer to be good. He's only good. He doesn't need to struggle to get up early in the morning to do his spiritual practices. No, everything comes easy to him. He never thinks of breaking any ethical principle. He is really on board now. However, Mr. Hyde comes back. And Mr. Hyde comes back after he committed a murder. And he gives, and Dr. Jekyll cannot separate him any longer. Mr. Hyde has now become very strong by long indulging in his appetites, and therefore he takes over Dr. Jekyll. My dear people, never try to take a drug which promises you to take away all that bothers you. It never works. It will start to obsess you. You have to learn to deal maturely with these two parts within your personality. When I saw that evening with my own eyes how the people who had believed in brotherhood and unity began to fight and throw bombs at each other for political imagined reasons, no? I could see what my father had told me is unfortunately true. There's a thin borderline which separates these things. How can we take care of these two forces which are within us? How can we stop being divided souls? We all know from recent experience Nelson Mandela's life. When he came out of prison after 23 years or 5 years, I don't remember, of cruel imprisonment, he was asked by the press, what's the difference between the Nelson Mandela who went into the prison and the Nelson Mandela who walks out of the prison? And Nelson Mandela said, the Nelson Mandela who went into the prison was controlled by anger. The Nelson Mandela who left the prison understood that if I allow anger to come along with me, I will take prison with me into the rest of my life. I will not really leave the prison. I will take it along with it. He used to read every day a poem which I would like to share with you in part. It's called Invictus and was written by William Ernest Henley. The last verse reads, "It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul." He believed in the absolute freedom which is inside. The freedom of a captain to steer his ship here or there. The freedom of a spiritual person who can decide in which way he wants to develop. It is this which I want to leave you with, this idea. You are free at every moment. You may only have to learn how to nourish that part in you, that part in you which is inclined towards spirituality, that part in you that is a good, that has started the spiritual journey, that part in you that wants to perform compassionate acts. You have to nourish it. Yesterday I had a call, a Zoom conference, and I told the people there, don't focus on what does not work. You will make it only stronger. Focus on that which works and do spiritual cultivation. What that could mean, I would like to do in a little meditation with all of you, so that you get a practical idea. In this meditation today, we will do a passage meditation. We will meditate on a part of a wisdom text which was spoken by a person under so much torture you can't believe. I'm speaking of Prahlad Maharaj, who by his own father was tortured. He had told him earlier something which is a spiritual truth, something which I which I have shared on my lecture series. There are no enemies out there. There is only one enemy, that is the uncontrolled mind that Mr. Hyde inside which goes wild. And there are ways to strengthen the spiritual side so that Mr. Hyde becomes a willing servant when the spiritual side is stronger. So I would like you to go now with me into a meditational experience. Are you ready? Manish, I see you. Michael, I see you. Our gracious host is there, Hari Prasad, Vipin Goyala. This is the people I see at the moment. I request you now to find a comfortable position in your seat. You are already sitting, but some of you were sitting on the edge of your seat. That's not very comfortable. You please find a very comfortable position. We will become aware of our physical body. Relax from the toes up to the knees and the hips or waist. Relax your entire lower body. Bring your attention to your spine, from down to up, and relax. Remain sitting straight and go to your back and try to relax. Your abdomen, relax. Your chest, relax. Shoulders and arms, relax. Your palms should be facing upwards. They can rest on the knees. Relax your entire upper body now. Go to the back of your head and neck and relax. The top of your head, relax. The forehead, eyes, tongue, and jaw, relax. Relax your entire head. Take a few relaxed breaths now. Not with a lot of effort, just relaxed, smooth, gentle breaths. and bring your attention to your heart space. I will read to you now a wisdom text spoken by Prahlad. Make your mind equal towards all beings. Look at everyone with an equal vision. Friends, neutral persons, people who you might perhaps find difficult at times. Look at all of them with an equal vision. Just like you, people have known suffering. Just like me, people look towards happiness. Just like me, people have known loneliness and sadness. Just like me, people try to fulfill their needs. Just like me, people are learning about life. There are no enemies except the mind, which is uncontrolled. Worship, oh worship the Supreme Lord and pray to Him for strength of heart. We take a few deep breaths. I know some of us would like to stay in this space, but I nevertheless request you to return to room awareness. Look. First around the room. And then into the screen. One of my best friends, who is no longer with us, he has left the body. He asked me at the end of his life, a question. He said, Sacinandana Swami, in your heart there are two dogs fighting. Which one will win? I think every one of you knows the answer. It's the one whom you give food. Although this is so known that I think in any self-help seminar you hear this part, this question. It comes from the Native Americans. It's so known. It's so deep. When I was disillusioned in Serbia, the place where I was finding so much happiness by seeing how much suffering humans can inflict upon other humans because of not feeding their spiritual sides and making it strong. Then I became very dedicated to, in my own life, always see that I give enough nourishment to my spiritual side. I would like to end with another verse from a wisdom text. Those who have visited India will understand this text very much, very well. When you walk and you have no shoes, oh, there are the thorns and the pebbles, and you walk even in the most beautiful countryside, the most holy place is a miserable walk. But if you have shoes, then everything is easy. So the text says, for a person who has suitable shoes on his feet, there is no danger, even when he walks on pebbles and thorns. For him, everything is auspicious. Similarly, for one who is always self-satisfied in his spiritual life, there is no distress. Indeed, he feels happiness everywhere. I wish all of you on this call that you may find in your life good shoes that protect you in a spiritual sense. I mean, that you are well equipped to deal with the challenges of life. Let us not look upon down upon this Serbians who threw the tear gas bombs and into the hall and think it would be never possible for us. We can also be bad people if we don't learn how to nourish our spiritual side. But if we do, we have shoes on, and even when life is difficult, when life is dangerous, and so on, we walk through everything very easily, very swiftly. And at times when we fall, there will be someone to catch us. Like in my case, when I fell down from the stage, a person was there who caught me. Because everything is easy, everything is arranged when you are spiritually well situated. Yes, there are a few tests to make you more mature, but these tests only are the delicate spicing in life. It is not a problem. I thank you all very much for listening so patiently, and I'm now ready to give the microphone over to our host, who will guide us through the rest of the session.
Very much, Swami. So we have just a couple of minutes before we will officially close the session, and then we will have a half an hour for so we can ask a question that came in from Guggen, if that's all right.
Yes.
How does one work with people in a conflict where engaging with one side can result in losing friends because each side sees the other as the abuser?
How do we deal with conflicts between two sides? Because whatever side you go, each side sees the other side as an abuser. I have been often in such situations. You know, I'm visiting a few spiritual communities, and also all kinds of communities, really. And I'm the spiritual counselor. And sometimes there are community conflicting interests. And now if I give a counsel, I might be seen by one side as joining the abusers or the wrong people, the wrong side. I have seen in such situations it does not help if you are jumping on one side and going and so on. You must look for a third solution, not A and B, but a third solution. As a monk, I have always seen this third solution in giving a spiritual perspective, an entirely different perspective that will help and nourish both sides, and then let them come to their conclusion. I have also, that is my first answer to your question. A second answer is, I have studied the work of Marshall Rosenberg. I actually took part in a seminar which he gave in Munich long ago, when I was cultivating cultivating a person who was working with this organization, who had asked Marshall Rosenberg to come, and that person took me to one of the sessions, and I remember still how Marshall Rosenberg, who had been able to help clans in Africa to resolve their their disputes by using one method. That is, he brought them together and he brought them into a process where they would solve everything together. It is very simple. Both sides were requested to make their points, and when side A was finished, side B had to repeat the point of side A to the full satisfaction. And by doing this for some time, without intervening and giving solutions, they somehow came to the same to the conclusion. We have one great spiritual teacher, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who used this method even before Marshall Rosenberg got the idea. I know he would bring the conflicting sides, person A and person B, together, and he would ask them, talk about one good thing which you see in the other person. And, you know, this was at the height of the conflict. So the person A said, well, at least he's a vegetarian. He doesn't eat meat and kill other living beings for his food. And the other person then would say, yeah, and at least he sleeps in an ashram. So, then it would go on, and then people would focus on the good sides of the other person, and then from there it was easier to resolve what was the conflicting part. And my answer, both part A and part B, part A was come from a different perspective, which is nourishing to both sides, and part B, bring people into a conflict resolution process. In my answer, there's one element which is the same. Don't get drawn into the conflict. Be very clear, it's not your conflict. It's the people's conflict. And you can only help them to start talking to each other and finding a resolution, and by a certain process. That's the main thing is, never get drawn into something which is not your war, so to say, or your conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, we will bring the program officially to a close, and we're very, very grateful, Sacinandana Swami. Thank you for all that you've shared with us. It's extremely meaningful, and we're excited for the next session to come, episode 3, next week, same time. Thank you for joining us from Germany, and thanks to everyone who has joined us from different parts of the world. We're so excited that we get to have you. We look forward to more with you. And now, for those who can stay, oh, yeah.
Just one thing, the episode 3.
Yes.
Will be the best episode. I like to think of everything, because everything was so impactful. It's very, very best, as they say in India. But I want to describe to you a very close encounter with my own death, which happened in the Canary Islands when I was washed by the Atlantic Ocean out into the ocean, and I felt I had a personal encounter with God there. When you hear it, you will see. I cannot tell the surprises, because it's meant to be like a cliffhanger, this little announcement. But I believe this episode has a lot for all of us in it. It is very, very telling, really, when you are coming face to face with such a situation, and then an unexpected turn of events happened, which is so unexpected that it must be divine.
Amazing. Thank you. So everyone who can stay with us, we're eager to have your continued presence and your questions. We have one question. We'll go right into it. This is from Amit. Why is Mr. Hyde so loud? The task feels so enormous that it seems almost impossible.
Mr. Hyde is so loud if he was nourished for such a long time. Long indulgences have made him extremely powerful. This was already known to one philosopher, Augustinus. He was once, as a young man, brought into the Circus Maximus. You know, that's the place in Rome where gladiators fought to the death against each other. And he didn't want to see how, for entertainment, a person was killed in the circus arena. But as the fight between the two came to the end, he had covered his face with a blanket. he opened the blanket a little bit and saw this gruesome scene, how one gladiator just gave the other the death blow, so with his dagger. And that scene was with him for a long time. And he always thought, how is it that my mind always remembers these unfavorable impressions of violence and so on? It is because we have since a long time cultivated this material life, and therefore habits, or you could say it in the words of neuroscience, neural pathways have formed, they have wired together, and they demand that we go again and again those pathways, those thoughts, and again we want to see, or we see these images. Again and again we feel those impulses. Again and again we submit to temptation, because this has become a biological reality, or psychologically expressed. We have these deep entrenched habits, or if you want to express it in the words of Sankhya, these sanskaras, deep impressions, are in the chitta, in the conscious awareness there. In the old times, people had these long playing records. There was a little needle which would go in the grooves which had been pressed into this vinyl plastic, and then they would go in these grooves and make the music. One music was classical music, other music was different types of musics, because of the different pressing of different grooves onto the vinyl. So we all have our brain in some ways, or our consciousness in some ways, is like one of these long playing records, very long playing, years of programming is in there, if not lifetimes. And the needle of our awareness is sometimes coming into them, and then all of a sudden we hear the same old thoughts, or do this, react like this, feel hurt like this, and so on. So what we have to do is to create new grooves, new impressions, new memories, new visions, and they will overtake. I wish to tell this to you. I'm now, believe it or not, physically I'm an old man. I could be the father of many of you if I would not be a monk. And I can see in my mind so many spiritual memories, so much which I have gleaned through the literature of spiritual scripture, and so on. And I saw this very much even in the beginning of my life as a monk. And now I have only spiritual memories. The others I have, I mean, I can reproduce them if I want, but if I'm sitting on my own on a bench at a lake, I will think about, yeah, what I have read. I will think about pilgrimages and such things. So my dear people, create memories, good impressions. And I cannot think of anything better than if you start your day when you are fresh in your attention span with a spiritual program which should have at least two elements. The first element is wisdom texts, like the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, an engaging wisdom text. And the second is deep meditation, on where you bring everything from one level of cognition to another level of cognition. Once you come to the second level, this more deeper level, the states of consciousness that you access in meditation, you have a fundament for your day that is wonderful. My spiritual master always said each human being should have a sandwich program. What is a sandwich program? It is in the morning you lay a spiritual foundation, and then in the evening, before you go into your subconscious mind, when you start to sleep and dream, have another short spiritual program. This is a sandwich, and in between is the day. Organize your day like a sandwich. Then you will strengthen your that spiritual side, the Dr. Jekyll, so to say, and then engage your vital part. You know, you can engage it. Bhakti is so wonderful. The conflict is soon no longer there because you engage your vital part. Let me tell you of my life. I was as a young man, when I became a monk, I was a Rolling Stones fan. I do not know if you know what is Rolling Stones. In the old days, there were only two musicians, the Beatles, a musical group, and the Rolling Stones. You had to be either one or number two. So I was number two. Rolling Stones were the bad boys and Beatles were the good boys. And I was on the other side. And so I have a lot of vitality in me. Even now as an old man, you see, I like to laugh, I like to gesture, I like to make a point. It's a vital point. Engage whatever you are in spiritual things, and it will become purified. Engage your temperamental nature, your dynamic nature, your creative nature, and so on, in spirituality, and it will become good. It's just like with the horse. The horse, when they are young, they don't know left and right. They only know jumping here, jumping there. But you can gently train the horse to move in a nice, creative, and beneficial way. So the yogi and this is how the Bhagavatam addresses it, is encouraged to use all the parts of his personalities, even the horse-like parts, the young horse-like parts, and in this way they become useful for his overall goal in life.
Thank you. The next question is from Ghislaine. So she's expressing her gratitude to you. And what to do when we egregiously cross the thin, delicate line between our humanity and our inhumanity? What do we do when we cross this line between our humanity and our inhumanity? And also, we might cross that line even after much spiritual nourishment and care. And I think that creates a further sense of guilt or hopelessness that I've invested so much in myself spiritually, and still I'm crossing this line.
First of all, please understand that this is natural. We have these two sides. In us. Oops. You could call one the spiritual side and the other the human side. And then there is an intersection, and that is the personality which we are right now. How we experience ourselves, how we think, how we perceive things. It's in this intersection where the work takes place, where we as spiritual beings, let us say this is the spiritual side, meet upon our humanness, our where we have frailties, where we do make mistakes, and where they come together, that's the person who we are. So sometimes it does happen that we are too much here in the human frailty side. We, as you said so nicely, we cross that line and so on. We make failures, we make mistakes, we become angry, we become lusty maybe even. We become less than our ideal. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna addresses this painful point. And he says, someone who is on the spiritual side should never be condemned, even if he does commit mistakes, because he is on the right path. It is natural to commit mistakes. It's an existential feature of humanity to commit mistakes. Just don't become so hung up about them. Don't focus on them and go, oh no, oh, no, 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 no. Concentrate on what is good in you and make that stronger. And soon that you will not cross the line any longer. I also would like to bring another point to your consideration. Be aware of what happens when you cross the line. Be aware, don't press it into your subconsciousness. See and observe. How do you feel now? How is that momentary satisfaction which you feel in this, let us say, that superficial delight of the senses, is that really fulfilling the inner desire of your soul? If you are aware and observe consciously what is happening, you will see a lot of the impulses going away. This many spiritual people don't know. when they commit a mistake, they go into the, oh, I'm so guilty, I'm so useless, and go into this idea. I want to encourage you, put your spectacles on and look what just happened. What was the experience like? Put your conscious awareness to it, almost like a torchlight that you are pointing towards a dark corner of the room. And as you do this, you will see the darkness dissolving more and more. A second thing I want to say to you is, in solacing you, please know that you are not alone. Many times, spiritual people are not conscious atheists. They believe in God, they believe in higher forces, but they are unconscious atheists. That when something happens to them, they don't call for help. What is the use of, when after making a mistake, to just hide and go away and think, oh, mea culpa, I'm such a guilty person. Say, my dear Lord, I made this mistake. Please, this is what happened, and I request you for your help so that I can move on with strength. No? Only when you think there is no help is life hopeless. The moment when you recognize there's help, life becomes very hopeful. Woo, very hopeful.
We have a question from Robert. He's quoting Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is the power to choose. How do we choose a response based on spiritual principles instead of ego-based perceptions?
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, let the real you speak. When you respond, let the real person speak. So, when there is a situation in life that is difficult for you, you need to stop everything. You need to think about it. You need to see, where am I really when it comes to this situation? What is my desire? What is that is really there? Because only when the self speaks, then it has strength. There is a statement. In India, there is a sacred mountain. It is Giriraj Govardhan, and it is said, if you make a circumambulation around this mountain and pronounce clearly your request, it will be fulfilled. But and there is a whole book about it, which has amazing cases of people who were sick, who were, you know, there was no hope for their returning to health, but they made this request and the request was granted. I read something about a murderer who was out on bail and who went to this mountain and said, please bring me out of this situation. I promise to be a good person. And all charges were thrown away. It's amazing. This mountain, if you are very eager to know, Hari Prasad and Rasanath will be able to tell you the address of this mountain. But the insiders know those who make a request and the request is not an honest request, the sacred mountain will say, really? I will not fulfill the request right now. Let us see if next year you come back again to ask the same request again. I want to see, you need to make a real request. And then the person comes back the next year because the request was not yet granted. And if he is still not sincere, but he just says something out of the mind, again this question will back. Better you come back. Let us see in 1 year where you are. Let the real you speak and spiritual life. So a good response, you know, Viktor Frankl very nicely explored the subject that between a stimulus and a response, there is your human freedom, where you can make a choice how you will respond to the stimulus. You need to find the your real voice here, and that takes sometimes a little time. You may have to go a little bit deeper. You may have to inquire a little bit more. At times you may have to access the deeper part of you. Therefore, I really love this series title, and I think it is Become Who You Are. Am I correct, Hari Prasad?
Remembering who we are.
Remembering who you are. The same idea yes, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. And for this, a spiritual practice is absolutely required. When I sit down to my spiritual practice, I'm one person when I start. I'm not one person, but one type of awareness is there. Afterwards, I'm inspired, I'm connected, and so on. Therefore, my answer to you is train your spiritual muscles. Have a spiritual program, a spiritual practice, which you do repeatedly.
Wonderful. So we will conclude here. We're so grateful once again for your presence and your sharing everything that you have with us, taking us to the Balkans and taking us out with precious realizations and insights about ourselves and our dual nature. Thank you so much, Sacinandana Swami. And our warmest gratitude to each of you who have been present with us and have been taking to heart these experiences and teachings. We can't wait to be back with you next week, Wednesday, at the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, for episode 3. All the best, wishing you a wonderful week.